I'm going to check above and below my bus to ensure there's nothing to impede movement. I'm going to check my 5 amber clearance lights to make sure that they're clean, clear, not cracked, broken, and they're operating. Check my head sign glass to make sure it's clean, clear, not cracked, broken, no chips. The head sign seal is not cracked, broken, not missing. Check my windshield, both my windshields, to make sure they're clean, clear, not cracked, broken, no illegal stickers. Check my windshield seal to make sure it's intact, not cracked, broken. I'll check my windshield wiper blades to make sure that they're intact, not frayed, not cracked, broken. They're held on securely. My windshield wiper arms are not cracked, broken. They're held on securely with nuts or bolts. Windshield washer fluid door to make sure it's not cracked, not loose. My windshield washer fluid cap to make sure it's not missing, not cracked, not loose. Check my low and high beam headlights to make sure they're clean, clear, not cracked, they're not loose. Make sure my bicycle rack is in the upright position. It's not loose. It's held on with bolts. My front bumper is not loose, held on with bolts. I would check my license plate to make sure it's held on with bolts. Not loose, not missing. Check these headlights, my low and high beam, to make sure they're clean, clear, not cracked, not broken, and they're operating. I would check my turn signal to make sure that it's amber in color, not cracked or broken, not missing. I would check, I did. I would check my um, mirror to make sure it's not loose, it's not cracked or broken. I would check my mirror glass to make sure it's not cracked, broken, it's clean, clear, no illegal stickers. I would check my amber clearance light to make sure it's not cracked, broken, it's held on with screws. Check my driver's window seal to make sure it's not cracked, not missing. My driver's window frame is not cracked, not broken. Driver's window glass, it's not cracked or broken, no illegal stickers, no chips. I would check my battery cables to make sure they're not corroded, not loose. Behind this panel, but not visible, is my steering gear box. It's not cracked, not loose, not leaking. The steering hoses are not loose, not bulged, not leaking. The pitman arm is also located behind this panel. It's held on with nuts or bolts. It's not loose or missing. Check my amber turn signal or hazard lights to make sure that they're operating. They're clean, they're clear, not cracked or broken. Held on with screws. I would check my frame to make sure that there's no illegal drill holes, no illegal welds. Check my shock to ensure it's not leaking. It's held on with bolts. It's not loose. I would check my airbag to make sure it's not leaking, not cracked, broken. I would check to ensure my drag link is not cracked or broken, loose. It's held on with nuts or bolts. I would check my tie rod to ensure it's not cracked, broken, it's not loose, held on with nuts or bolts. I would check my steering knuckle to ensure it's not cracked, broken, and it's held on with nuts or bolts. My air chamber to ensure that it's not leaking, it's not cracked or broken, it's not loose. My air chamber hose to ensure it's not cracked, bulged, broken, or leaking air. I would check my caliper inside of the wheel to ensure it's not loose, not cracked, broken. I would check my brake pads to make sure that they're not chipped, they're not cracked, broken, or missing. I would check my tire to ensure it's not bulged, not cupped, and it has at least 430 seconds of tread on the front, and that there are no retreads on the front. I would check to ensure my rotor is not cracked, broken, and it's tight. I would check my wheel to make sure it's not cracked, no illegal welds. Check my lug nuts to make sure they're tight. There's no rust indicating that they're loose. Check my hub to make sure it's not leaking. Bolts are intact and it's tight. I would check my valve stem to make sure it's not leaking air. It's not loose. I would check my wheel well or my fender to ensure that it's not missing, not loose. I would check my mud flap to make sure it's tight, held on with bolts. I would look down the side of the bus to ensure that there's nothing that seems to have any structural damage. As I'm going down the bus, I would ensure All my windows are clean, clear, not cracked or broken. All my window seals and frames are not cracked, broken. I would check to make sure that none of the windows have illegal stickers. I would also check my amber turn signal hazards to make sure they're clean, clear, not cracked, broken, or held on with screws. I would then check my mud flaps to ensure they're not missing, they're held on with nuts or bolts. I have a shock and an airbag behind this panel. Shock and an airbag behind this panel. I would make sure neither are leaking, they're both tight, not loose. I would check my frame to ensure it's not cracked, no illegal drill holes, no illegal welds. I would check my torque arm to ensure it's held on with bolts, not cracked, broken, or loose. I would check my brake chamber behind this tire to ensure it's not leaking, the hose isn't leaking, not bulged, not cracked, broken. I would check to make sure my tires have at least 230 seconds of tread. I would check to ensure that there's no debris between the wheels. I would check my brake pads to make sure they're not chipped, cracked, broken. My caliper to make sure it's not loose. I would check my wheel to make sure it's not cracked, no illegal welds. I would check my lug nuts to ensure that they're tight. Make sure there's no rust indicating that they're loose. I would check my hub to make sure it's not leaking and it seems to be tight. I would check my valve stems. There's 2 total to ensure they're not loose, not leaking air. I would check, if I had a tire pressure gauge, I would check to ensure that there was 90 psi in my tires. If I didn't have a tire pressure gauge, I could use a tire thumper. Located back here is a drive shaft. I would ensure it's not loose, it's held on with nuts or bolts. And I would ensure that the safety bar is intact and it's held on with nuts or bolts. I would still be checking my windows as I go down, make sure they're clean, clear, not cracked, broken. Ensure that my radiator door, that there's nothing to impede airflow to the radiator. Make sure it's intact, not loose. I would check to make sure my red reflector is intact, and it's red because it's behind the rear axle. I would check my red clearance light to ensure that it's clean, clear, not cracked, broken, and is operating. I would check my 5 red clearance lights to ensure they're all operating, clean, clear, not cracked or broken. I would check my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 red stop tail lights to ensure that they're clean, clear, not cracked, broken. The seals are intact and they're operating. I would check my 2 amber turn / hazards to ensure they're clean, clear, not cracked, broken. They're operating. I would check my 2 clear reverse lights that would be operating if the bus is running and in reverse. Also check to ensure that the seals were intact. Check my 2 red reflectors to ensure they're clean, clear, not cracked or broken. I would check above and below the bus for anything to impede movement and to ensure that there is no fluid leaking. I would check my coolant reservoir cap to ensure it's tight, not missing. My reservoir to ensure that it's not leaking. I would check my sight glass to ensure a proper level of coolant. I would check coolant lines to ensure they're not leaking, held on with clamps. I would check exhaust pipe to ensure it's not loose, held on with nuts, bolts, clamps, and there's no soot indicating a leak. I can also check my frame back here to ensure it's not cracked, broken, no illegal drill holes. I would check my transmission fluid level with the bus running in neutral, and it should read between add and full. My oil dipstick should read between add and full with the bus off, or the engine off. Then open the engine access door. I would check my water pump to ensure it's not loose, it's not leaking. I would check my alternator to make sure it's not loose, it's held on with nuts or bolts. I would check my belt to ensure it has no more than 3/4 inch of deflection. My air compressor is located back here. It's gear driven. I would ensure that it's not cracked, broken, not missing bolts. Power steering pump's right below it, not visible. I would ensure that it's not leaking. It's held on with bolts, not loose. Power steering reservoir located back here. Should read between add and full with the engine off. I'll check my oil fill cap to ensure it's tight, it's not missing. Check my engine wires to ensure they're not frayed or not broken anywhere. The air compressor or the AC compressor. I would check my red reflector to make sure it's not cracked, broken. Then shut my engine access door. I would ensure my license plate is not cracked, it's not missing bolts, license plate light's operating. Check my rear bumper to ensure it's not loose. Check my red reflector, ensure it's not cracked, broken, missing. Check my red clearance light to ensure it's operating, not cracked or broken. As I'm walking up the bus, I would ensure that there's nothing or any sort of structural damage as I'm going up the bus. I would check my diesel exhaust fluid reservoir to ensure it's not leaking, the cap's on tight. I'd be checking my windows as I go down the bus to make sure they're clean, clear, not cracked, broken. I'd be checking my amber turn signal hazard lights to ensure that they're amber in color and not cracked, broken, and they're operating. I would check this wheel, these wheels, the same as I would on the other side. I would check to ensure the frame has no illegal drill holes, no welds. The torque rod is intact with nuts or bolts. I would check the air chamber, make sure it's not leaking. Air chamber hoses are not leaking, not bulged. I would check the caliper, check the brake pads, check between the wheels to ensure there's no debris. I would check the hub seal to ensure it's not leaking, the lug nuts to ensure they're not loose, the wheel to ensure there's no damage, the tire to ensure that there's at least 2/32 to tread, and I would check the valve stems to ensure they're not leaking and they're not loose. I would also check the mud flaps, the fenders, to ensure that it's not missing, not loose. I would check the shock and airbag located back here to ensure they're not leaking, not cracked or broken. The shock and the airbag located over here to ensure they're not cracked, broken, not leaking. I would check my diesel fill door to ensure it's tight, not cracked, broken. The fill cap is tight. I would check the fuel tank to ensure it's not leaking. I would check my courtesy lights that would be operating if the rear door were open. I would check the rear door glass, make sure it's clean, clear, not cracked, broken. Check my door seal to make sure it's not missing, not cracked or broken. I would be checking my amber lights as I go down. Also still checking the windows as I go down to make sure they're clean, clear, not cracked, broken. All the frames are intact. Check my amber turn signal, hazard lights. The kneeling light would be operating if the bus were kneeling. My courtesy light is operating, clean, clear, not cracked or broken. I would check this side as if I were to check the other side. Check my mud flap. I would check my frame. Ensure that there's no illegal drill holes, no welds. I would check my torque arm to ensure that it's not cracked, broken, not missing bolts or nuts. Ensure that the airbag is not leaking, not cracked, broken, and the mount is not cracked or broken. Air chamber hose to ensure it's not bulged or leaking. Check my air chamber to make sure it's tight, not cracked, broken, or leaking. Check my steering knuckle to ensure it's held on tightly, nuts or bolts. I would check my caliper and my brake pads to ensure they're not cracked or broken. And I would check the tire to ensure that it's not cupped, not leaking, and it has at least 4/32 of tread with no retreads on the front. I would ensure that my lug nuts are tight, no rust indicating that they're loose. Check my wheel, my rim to ensure it's not cracked or broken anywhere, no illegal welds. Check my hub to ensure it's not leaking, and all the bolts seem to be tight. I would check my amber light up here, make sure it's clean, clear, it's not cracked or broken, it's operating. Check this mirror, make sure it's not loose, mirror glass is not cracked or broken, there's no illegal stickers. Check my amber reflector, my amber turn signal, make sure it's clean, clear. The turn signal is operating, not cracked or broken. I would check my entranceway to ensure there's nothing to impede movement. I would have 3 points of contact entering and exiting the bus. I would ensure the handrails are tight, nuts or bolts, they're not cracked or broken. Check my door glass to ensure it's clean, clear, not cracked, broken. The seals are intact, not cracked or broken, and the frames are intact, held on with nuts or bolts, not cracked or broken. I would be checking my handrails as I go down through the bus, through the interior of the bus. This is the standee line. Riders are not permitted beyond that line while the bus is in motion. I would be checking all my handrails as I go down through the bus to ensure that they're all tight. I'd be checking my seats as I go down through the bus to ensure that they're all tight, not loose. I would check my wheelchair straps to ensure they're not frayed, not loose, hold on with nuts or bolts. I'd be checking my 3 emergency exits on this side that have red handles or in the upright position. To operate them, you put on the handles, push out the window. I'd be checking my stop request chime to ensure it operates.
Stop requested.
Checking my handles and my seats as I go down through. Checking to ensure that there's nothing on the steps to impede movement. Step lights are operating. Checking all the handrails as I go down through. And checking the seats as I go down through. This is one of 2 roof emergency exits. To operate this, I would push out, turn the red handle, and push out again. I would check the stop request chime on this side as well.
Stop requested.
I would check all the seats to ensure they're tight. Handrails are still tight as I'm going down through. Check to ensure the mirror is tight, glass isn't cracked, broken, no illegal stickers. Ensure this door glass is not cracked or broken, it's clean, clear. The seal is intact, not missing, not cracked, broken. Frame is held on with nuts or bolts, not cracked or broken. The emergency door release, to operate it, you would break the glass, pull the handle down to release the pressure off the door.
Wait, you have to check those steps back there?
To make sure there's no trip hazards. Yes. Check all my handrails, make sure they're not loose. Check my 88 or wheelchair straps to ensure they're not frayed. Not missing any nuts or bolts, not loose. Check my handrails. These are the other 2 emergency exits. To use them, you pull down the red handle, push out. And that is the second roof exit, emergency exit. To operate it, I would do as I did in the rear. I would check to ensure that I have the 3 reflective triangles inside this compartment. I would check the ABC fire extinguisher to ensure that it's in the green, fully charged. I would still be checking handrails as I go down through. This bus is equipped with circuit breakers inside of this panel. If this bus were equipped with fuses, we would be required to carry 3 extra fuses. Be checking my seat to ensure that it's tight. I would be also checking this door emergency exit. To operate it, I would do as I did in the rear, break the glass and pull the handle. I would check these mirrors, make sure they're clean, clear, not cracked, broken, not loose. I would then put on my seatbelt, ensure that it's not frayed, not loose. And then on a smooth level surface with the wheels trucked, I would place the vehicle in auxiliary, check to ensure that the ABS light comes on and goes back out. All of my indicators will also come on and then go back out. I would then start the bus to ensure that the bus reaches around 130 psi, and the pressure relief valve will then kick on. PSI has reached around 130 and the pressure relief valve has went off, I would then turn the bus off, turn the bus back into auxiliary, and then I would perform the static pressure test on the smooth level surface with the wheels chocked. I would release the parking brake and ensure that I do not lose more than 2 psi in 1 minute. After that 1 minute, I would do the applied pressure test by applying the service brake and ensure that I do not lose more than 3 psi in 1 minute. After that 1 minute, I would then feather the brakes down to around 80 psi, where I would get a visual warning up on the instrument cluster. At around 80 psi, I got my visual warning. I would then feather the brakes down to 55 psi to ensure the parking brake pops out. The parking brake is engaged. I would then perform a safety start with my foot on the service brake, ensure that my parking brake is engaged, and ensure the transmission is in neutral. I've now gotten my audible warning for my low air in the brake system. The audible and visual warning should go out at around 80 psi. And around 130 psi, the pressure relief valve should kick on again.
Did you just put the fast idle on?
Yes, I put on the fast idle to build up air pressure faster. My audible and visual warning have gone off. And we're waiting till around 130 psi to ensure the pressure relief valve goes off. At around 130 psi, the pressure relief valve has went off. At this point, I would perform the parking brake check. I would put my foot on the service brake, place the transmission in drive, and leave the parking brake engaged. Tug against the parking brake to ensure that it holds. At that point, I would release the parking brake, go 5 miles per hour, with my hands not on the steering wheel but covering the steering wheel to ensure that the bus does not pull left or right, indicating any issues with the brake system. I will now turn my bus off and perform the driver area check. I will ensure that all my indicator lights up here come on and go back off. I would check to ensure that my air door release operates. I would adjust my mirrors for me. I would check to make sure that my doors were open and close. Ensure my front door opens and my rear door opens. My fast idle switch would be operating if the engine were on. Turn my hazard light switch on. I know that they're operating by the indicators up here. I could also tell by reflection, or if someone were to help me. It's my chime switch, my interior lamp, turn off and on to ensure that they're operating. My transmission controller, my driver's booster fan on low and on high. Check my panel lamp dimmer to ensure that's operating. My windshield wiper to ensure that it deploys washer fluid. I could also check my heater defrost fan, ensure that it works on defrost. Check my air gauge, my speedometer, my diesel fuel level, my transmission temperature, transmission fluid temperature, my oil pressure, my coolant temperature, my diesel exhaust fluid level, my voltmeter. I could check my auxiliary fans on low and on high.
Check the speedometer too.
The speedometer would be operating if the bus were moving. I would make sure that my Neil switch operates. And then at this point, I would turn my ramp on and operate my ramp to ensure that it stows, it deploys, and it stows. You do so by pressing up on the switch to deploy, and you could press down on the switch to stow. And I know that the ramp is on by the green LED indicator here. And then raise my bus. Ensure that my driver lamp operated. My exterior lamp test switch is located here. The lamp test switch only tests the bulbs. To ensure that the entire circuit is working or the switches are working, you would have to operate them manually. I would check my left turn signal, indicator shown here. I know that it's working by either reflection or if someone were to help me. My high beam switch, located down by your left foot. My right turn signal, indicator here. You can also tell it's working by reflection. I would ensure that my horn works. My 20-inch steering wheel has no more than 10 degrees of play. I would ensure my steering column is tight, my brake pedal is tight, my accelerator pedal is tight. And then I could check my brake lights, my red clearance lights in the rear, my rear turn signals, my rear reverse lights, my front clearance lights, my front headlights, turn signals, all by reflection or if someone were to help me do so.
Is there another way that you could know they're working just by sitting here?
You could operate the lamp test switch, but like I said, that only operates the bulbs, and then we could go out and do an exterior visual inspection on the lamps.
How about the four ways?
The four-way switch is located here. You know it's working by reflection or the indicators up here. And I think that concludes my pre-trip inspection.
All right, Jake completed this in 28 minutes and 53 seconds. He had 30 minutes to complete it. He did it very slowly so everybody could understand him. He also purposely missed a couple things and purposely made mistakes, let's say. On the parking brake test, he forgot, I'm going to tell you, he forgot something. It's up to you guys to figure it out. It's a very small issue, but it's something that would fail you. And he did that on purpose. Anything that deals with the braking system is an automatic failure. You have to get it 100%. You can't hesitate. You can't go back. You cannot turn the parking brake on, put it back on, off, and and say, oh, I didn't mean to do that, because he will fail you, even though you know you made a mistake at that time. Automatic failure. You could miss a boatload of stuff on the outside of the bus and on the inside of the bus and still pass, but don't mess up on the air brakes. And he did all that on purpose. So that's up to you guys to read the script and to figure out what it was. Jake, do you want to explain on how you got the bus ready for your pre-trip before you
Yes.
started it?
So I would turn the ignition switch 2 times, turn the lights on. I would turn my high beam headlights on. I would turn my hazards on. I would start the bus, turn the steering wheel all the way to the right. I would also go in the rear of the bus and ensure that the engine access panel or door is unlocked, but the hatch is still closed.
And if the instructor asks you what type of braking system is on here,
Disc brakes, air disc brakes.
they're used to most everybody coming in with drums on the back. So that concludes the pre-trip. Like I said, Jake did it in that under 30 minutes, and he took his time. He talked slowly, he moved slowly so everybody could see it. I apologize for some of the videos being shaky, but it's hard, tight spots. When Jake first did it, I think it took him over an hour. And one of the first things he told me, there's no way I could do this in a half an hour. When he took his test, he got done in 18 minutes. And he passed the first time. So it's very possible. That concludes the pre-trip video. Make sure you read and study it. And I stress it again. Learn that air brakes and the tug test. Learn it, and learn it. Till you can say it backwards and you know every little thing without hesitating. That will kill you on your pre-trip test. That will kill you. That's the end of the video.